So I thank you all for tuning in on Wednesdays for Whip Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, as well as on Fridays at 7. We either do a flash sale or a live chat. So tonight I'm excited to bring you a flash sale. Now I am Vanessa, also known as the Crafty Gemini, and I post instructional video tutorials on the Crafty Gemini YouTube channel, on my Facebook page. I'm pretty active, as well as on Instagram. And we sell a ton of different products and digital courses on our website, CraftyGemini.com. So if you're new around here, welcome. And if you are a returning and longtime customer and follower, welcome back. All right, so go ahead and leave me in the comment a quick note just to tell me where you're tuning in from. I'm coming to you from my home sewing studio in North Central Florida, and we are going to say hello to some friends that are tuning in. Hi, Carla. I'm glad that y'all can hear me loud and clear. Technology, microphone, everything working good. All right, we see some of you are tuning in. Tracy from Mississippi. Hey, girl. Hi, Ruby, tuning in from Kentucky. We got Tracy from Mississippi. I said that already. Nancy from Michigan. Hi, Miss Nancy. Hi, Kim. She says she's in Texas and she has power but no water. I know a lot of you are going through some rough times, so hopefully things will start to warm up and get cleaned up for y'all. So we're thinking about everybody in these rough climates. It's kind of wild out there what's going on with the weather. Hi, Miss Gloria, tuning in from Arkansas. My in-laws live in Arkansas, and they were sending us pictures of snow, which we've been there multiple times, and it's always super hot. So I was like freaking out a little bit that there was like inches and inches of snow. That was pretty wild for us to see. The kids, of course, wish that they could be there. All right, so hey everybody, Carolyn tuning in from Maryland. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's jump right into going over what is included and what today's flash sale is all about. I will grab my little zippered pouches. These are my color block zip pouches. Aren't they cool and fun? They're made out of faux leather, and we have installed a zipper, but a metal brass zipper here on each of these. And you can see, I'll show you from the bottom part here. I went ahead and swapped the panels on either side. So tonight's flash sale includes the materials that you need to make 3 of these pouches, as well as a step-by-step video course on how to make it. So the course itself is already available. So once you purchase tonight's flash sale, we will go ahead and add you to it. I have to manually add everybody into it as soon as I get off here live. A lot of you I already did. Those of you that snagged your flash sale before we went live, I was sitting here adding y'all so you can have instant access to your course. But if you purchase while we're on live tonight and until we sell out, obviously I will go ahead and manually add you to the course. So tonight you'll be able to sit there and watch the video lessons. There are 3 high definition step-by-step video lessons walking you through everything, including my little tips and tricks and kind of hacks on how to install a metal zipper, okay, so that you don't have to have zipper tab ends, and the ends look pretty good, okay? So that's that. This does not have a lining. They are all raw edge on the inside because the faux leather doesn't fray. So we go over a few different ways that you can finish off these seams. On this one, I think you can see it, how we press the seam open and top stitch it for a neater, kind of more polished look on the inside. So a lot of different little things covered. It's funny because when I start to film these courses, I'm like, oh, this will be like one video. This is nothing, a super simple zippered pouch. And then it's like I have so many tips and tricks to share with you all that I end up, you know, going into more depth. And then I'm like, yeah, this is like 3 videos. And one of the videos is almost 20 minutes long. So there's some great content in there, lots of my tips and tricks. So again, the flash sale includes everything you need to make 3 different pouches. So I'll go over what's in it. This little pouch here, you're going to get 6 sheets of super high quality faux leather. Those of you that signed up for my lacrosse pencil pouch with those faux leather kits that we did before, I know I got a lot of emails from y'all saying, wow, this stuff sews up like butter. This is really great quality stuff. So you're going to get 6 sheets, assorted colors. So you'll be able to sit there and kind of play around and see which 2 colors you want to use for color blocking it. Now I went ahead and use 2 different colors, right? So I got 1 sheet from the pink and 1 of this kind of cool purple color. And then I used just those 2 colors, okay? But you could use 4 colors total. How cool would that look? If you did 1, 2, and then 3 and 4, you would still have the remaining halves of those same 4 colors to make 2 multicolored ones, if that makes sense. I think that would be super cool. I think that's the next one that I need to make. So you get 6 sheets, of faux leather, and the measurements on these are 8 1/4 by 11 3/4. And so of course the video lessons that are included in the flash sale bundle, if you take advantage of it today, include everything for these specific sheets of faux leather and these specific zippers. So then you get 3 zippers, different colors. They are 11-inch number 5 brass zippers. They're like heavy duty metal zippers, so it really adds like this really kind of chic touch. I like that metal hardware that's kind of chunky like that. And then you get a spool of my favorite Gutermann thread for constructing things together that are going to last. And this is a big spool. You'll have plenty here if you make garments, if you make handbags, pouches, and that kind of stuff that gets a lot of wear and tear. Awesome, awesome. Okay? And then, of course, the little sticker and my hand-signed thank you card. So again, everything you need to make 3 of these color block pouches is what's included. Now, the link is included in the video description box below for you to snag tonight's flash sale Friday if you want. Remember that my flash sales also include free shipping in the United States. Now, if you're an international customer, we will just invoice you for the shipping cost, and then we can, proceed with your order, but that's not a big deal. We do that a lot for our friends in the UK, Australia, Canada, all the places, right? All right, so I'm going to share with you tonight, aside from telling you what comes in here, I kind of wanted to go over some faux leather tips, tricks, do's, don'ts, things to avoid, things you can do, that kind of stuff, okay? So I'm going to pop in here, make sure if I need to answer any specific questions that I can go ahead and do that. Go ahead and switch to the other camera angle so that I can kind of start setting up here and go over a few of these different things. Let's see real quick. All right. Karen says, I hear me breaking needles on brass zippers. Karen, watch the videos. I even mark it out for you to show you exactly where to start, where to end, and you can draw it as well if you need to, okay? But you're not going to sew over the brass zipper. Just follow my steps and slow down your sewing speed so you don't go over mistakenly, okay? All right, let's see. Oh, Nancy has a great question. She says, can you say what size the finished pouch is? So the finished pouch is about 7 inches this way, 9.5 or 9 inches this way. Let me double check because I wrote the measurements are listed in the product description for the flash sale. So you can check that too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's like 9.5 this way by 7 this way by 2 this way at the chunkiest part of the gusset. Or the box pouch, and you know where we boxed out the corners. Ooh, girl, look at that. I did good. Okay, so that is that. It's a good size pouch, okay? And this is one that I think if you're looking for something to give a guy, which I know so many of you always email me like, I love your little pouch projects, but I need something for a guy. I think this is cool for anybody, right? Instead of like a little dot bag, this can be like a toiletry, travel, bathroom kind of, toiletry pouch. Why not? I mean, I use the baby blue zipper here, and that's because I used kind of a light blue top stitching thread as well. You can play around with something different like this. Kind of cool. I am one that loves to play around with colors. I'm not necessarily sitting there going, oh, this is, opposite of the color wheel of the other color. I'm just like, if one can play as the light and one can play as the dark, I feel like I have enough visual contrast and interest, and I'm like, we're going with it. And you can see that although I do just 2 colors for the pouches themselves, I always throw in a 3rd color here for the zipper, right? The zipper tape is another opportunity to add a pop of color. So I think y'all are going to love this little project. And for those of you that are always looking for kind of like the next quick little gifty pouch to crank out, it has no lining, but because the faux leather doesn't fray, I feel like we get a nice good enough finish, if you know what I mean. Especially with the metal zippers. There's no pulling out the metal teeth. We don't have to do anything extra, okay? We got a question coming in. Yes. Oh my gosh. And I clearly just dropped water all over my shirt. Anywho, sorry, I probably tapped the mic. The question was, can I embroider on the pouch or on the faux leather before making the pouch? Absolutely. And last year, I had another flash sale Friday featuring the faux leather sheets, these same ones, but with different size zippers for a different project. And I already saw some of y'all went ahead and embroidered initials, monogrammed it, and then made the pouch. Just be very mindful of like the centering of where things are going to be. And if you're going to embroider on the pouch, say you piece it together like this, the color block, and then you're going to embroider on one of these, just be mindful of your seam allowance on the side, because what is the center of this section before it's sewn, right, is going to be offset after it is sewn. But if you have an embroidery machine and you embroider stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Just a little quick tip for those people that maybe are new to embroidery or just might have gotten one and are thinking of doing that. But absolutely, this faux leather cuts and stitches up like a dream. So actually, let's move on to that. Nairo is asking, curious question, can this bag be made on a serger? So let me just think in my head real quick. Yes. It's like construction steps in my head. It can be made on the serger. The only thing is that if you decide to, and let me see if I can show you here. This one has a bigger. If you decide to do, where am I here? On the top stitching, this seam is pressed open and then I top stitch it down open. Obviously this part you won't be able to do on the serger, but if you sewed a serger seam there, then you could just push it to one side and top stitch that, which is actually what I did on this one. I didn't serge it, but I just pushed the seam allowance just to the one side. So you see that? You can't really see too much because I stitched it with the same color. It's like a light gray thread or light blue almost. And so the seam allowance is entirely folded over to one side and then top stitch. So if you wanted to serge that seam, you could then just fold over like that finished serged edge and then top stitch it. But absolutely you could do this on the serger. I'm trying to think everything else. Yeah, you should be fine. The only thing is that remember, most sergers don't have speed control. And I just mentioned sewing with the brass zipper that you're going to want to slow down a little bit. And then also because of the blade, you don't want to just be hacking across, you know, especially on those zipper ends. But yes, otherwise, sure. All right, let's see. Great question. Jamie's asking, do you go over how we could put in a lining on this pouch? I don't, because the bag was designed to not have a lining. If you wanted to line it, you could, let me think, you could just follow one of my other zipper pouch tutorials that have a lining, like the ones that I have on YouTube, and then adjust accordingly. You'll have to change up some things on the ends of the zipper because you're probably gonna have to make a like zipper tab ends so that you can go all the way to the ends and not have to deal with like the little tips that I share with you in the class to avoid the metal ends. And then what I would do in that case is probably sew a really scant seam or maybe not even color block it, because the more seams you sew across this way, the smaller, right, the panels end up being. And because I designed everything to fit exactly to the zipper, you will have to play around a little bit with it, you know. But there's so many different variations that we can do with these projects that, I mean, if I included videos on every type of which way that you can do, it would, you know, it'd be like 15 videos. Okay. All right, whoa, I just got a notification that the flash sale is sold out. So thank you everybody who got in on a bundle tonight. Congratulations to those of you that got in. Remember this tonight's bundle also gives you access, unlimited access to the step-by-step video course on how to make the pouch. So whenever you want to go back, you'll be able to view it. Now it didn't add you automatically to the course. So just as soon as I get off of here, I'll go ahead and add all of you that purchased the bundle. I'll go ahead and add you to the course so you can watch the videos tonight if you want to kind of like prepare and stuff like that. But then the packages themselves, the bundles, we plan to ship them out tomorrow. So they'll be right on their way to y'all. Okay? Let's see. Yeah, go ahead and hit the video with the thumbs up if you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube and you're enjoying this. I'm actually going to get into doing some little demo things. Let's see, I have another question popping out here. Says, do I need a leather point needle? Miss Maria's asking, and you actually don't. So that's some of the demos that I wanted to do tonight. So we can talk a little bit about thread, stitches, stitch length, all that kind of stuff. So this faux leather, first I want to show you how it cuts. Because I know a lot of times you hear faux leather, you think cork, maybe you're not familiar with it, or real leather. This stuff is, look how thin it is. It's super strong, but you see how it still drapes, right? So it has great body to it. I like it because it's not super duper stiff that a home sewing machine can't go through. And then but it still has enough body so that the pouches can, like, I think these can stand up on their own. And I mean, the metal zipper weighs more than the pouch, you know? So you see how stable it is, even without any type of interfacing or batting or even lining. So it's like that perfect sweet spot middle point, okay? So, all right, so here's a chunk of, I can't even tell if this is black or navy blue, but if I cut it, I mean, it's the same, right? It actually even feels better cutting it than the quilting cotton. It's just like this, It almost has like a cushiony feel to it, so you can feel as the rotary cutter cuts right through it, okay? So easy peasy to cut through. So then for sewing it, this is where you want to be mindful. And I was working on a couple little samples here to show you. I don't know if you can see that really good, but there's like a bubble right there. You see how that won't lie flat? And that's because I stretched it like this as I was top stitching it. And so you might think, well, why would you even stretch it? Well, if you're sewing it on a domestic sewing machine, you can see that bubble, how it bubbles up like that. Now, if you're sewing on a regular sewing machine and you don't have either a Teflon foot or a walking foot or something, and you find that like your machine is struggling to get this to feed through it, then you may find that you want to stretch it to kind of help it through. But what you're doing is actually distorting it. Okay, and two things can come into play here. One is just distorting, look at that, it almost wants to bow out. So it's distorting the fabric as you're stitching it. So you're like, let me yank on it and then stitch down that weird shape into place. That's what you're doing, okay? So sometimes that happens when your stitch length is not long enough. And this I say it throughout all my classes, okay? If I tell you use a 2.5 millimeter stitch length, that does not mean that every single sewing machine known to man is going to work at 2.5 millimeters, because some machines, I mean, you may have experience with this if you have multiple machines. You'll set it to 2 millimeters and you stitch something, and then you go to another machine and you stitch at 2 millimeters and you're like, this is not 2 millimeters. One is way longer, right? And so it takes a little bit of troubleshooting and playing around. Now on this, and I'm going to pull this up here, you can see how tiny those stitches are. I mean, it's almost like if I'm perforating the faux leather. Okay, that stitch length, I want to say was probably like 1.5. It wasn't going anywhere. So even if you are working on your sewing machine and maybe you have 2.8 millimeters and you're thinking, surely this will work. If you find that the machine is just hanging onto that faux leather and it's sticking, then you might want to try some of the working with vinyl or faux leather tips, like putting some tape underneath your presser foot so that it glides a little bit easier, trying out a Teflon foot if your machine came with one, all that kind of stuff, okay, to help it go through. And something else that you can do is just to lengthen the stitch length to help you out. So let's go ahead and stitch out a line of stitching here. Why not? Let me and I want it to be on the red so y'all can see what I'm doing. Let me cut this off. Okay, so I am going to just fold this here. And I'm going to top stitch, like I'm going to stitch it like if I was sewing two layers together of anything, right? To a side seam on a pouch or whatever it may be. Now the thread that I'm using here is 100% polyester. It's a Gutermann thread. If y'all have seen me making clothes or have been in any of those classes, then you already know that this is a thread of choice. And of course tonight's flash sale, if you got in on it, includes a spool. What was I doing? This here. Okay. So now let me make sure that you can see the settings on my machine so I can talk a little bit about this, because this is super duper important. A lot of times people think, well, the instructions were wrong, they taught me wrong, the pattern doesn't work, my machine can't sew it, and it's just simple tweaks. Like you just need to adjust the settings, okay? So if I turn this machine off and I turn it back on, I'm going to see what the default setting is. The default on this machine is 3.5 stitch width, which just means it's the center needle position. And actually, I was going to plug the sewing machine, but we sold out today. So if you're in the market for a travel machine or a secondary machine, you can add yourself to the wait list. This is the Juki LB5020, and I have 3 videos on my YouTube channel doing reviews and showing you what it can sew. But if you watch me live every week on Wednesdays and Fridays, you know that this is the little workhorse machine I use. All right, so 3.5 means center needle position. Let's go ahead and leave it there. The other number here references the stitch length. So my machine defaults to 2.2. Your machine might default to 2 or 2.5, right? It just depends. And so if you get a little piece or scrap piece of the exact same fabrics that you're going to be sewing through, okay, and you just try it out at the default setting and see what happens. Now again, I always have to preface this. This machine can do stuff that more expensive machines cannot. So don't just assume because I have a $300 and something machine that like you can just do this on your machine. Every machine has little things that it likes and doesn't like, right? So at 2.2, that's a pretty short stitch length. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm not pushing it and the machine is pulling the fabric through. So that's pretty darn good, okay? Because like I said, faux leather tends to stick because it has almost, I mean, this has a textured finish to it, but it tends to want to stick to the bottom of the plastic or even metal presser foot. So I'm barely holding it, so I can see that the feed dogs are really working here and it's pulling this through. But I want to see if it's pulling enough to where my stitches look halfway decent. So, and remember I said 2.2 is really kind of teensy. So if we have a look, and I'm going to focus this in for y'all, okay? You can barely see what the stitch is itself, but it's holding the fabric together, right? Case scenario, especially since it didn't really distort my fabric or pull things in one direction or the other. Okay, well now let's go ahead and change the stitch length and elongate it and see what the difference is. And we're working with the same weight thread here. This is about a 40 weight thread, all right? So now I'm going to lengthen the stitch length and I'm going to do another line of stitching right next to it. So instead of 2.2, let's go up to 3.2 or whatever, 3.5 this one jumps to. Okay? So now, from 2.2 to 3.5, I know I won't have to help the fabric through because if the feed dogs fed it through at 2.2, I know at 3.5 it's even a longer stitch, so it won't have trouble. And so the way that that translates, or the way you should be thinking about it in terms of your machine is, if you have yours set to like 2 millimeters or 2.2, and the machine looks like it's stitching in the same spot, the fabric is too thick, there might be too much presser foot pressure chomping down on your fabric, something is going on that it's not allowing the fabric to go through. And it might have to do with the fabric. Like I said, vinyl, faux leather, all this kind of stuff sometimes tends to stick to the bottom of the foot so it won't feed as smoothly, okay? So there's so many different factors that you need to troubleshoot there. But if you lengthen the stitch a little bit more and try it again, that 9 times out of 10 solves the problem. Okay. So we did another row of stitching. Okay, now this I think y'all will be able to see the difference. And this is again with the same weight thread. Okay, can you see this bottom row of stitches? How they're longer, they're more defined. You can actually see that it's a stitch. And if we turn it over, same, a little longer. They kind of look like they're wobbling because of the texture of the faux leather, but a little bit longer. And then just notice this, that you can almost separate it. Why is that? Because the stitch length is 3.5. That's almost a basting stitch, okay? So when would I use this in a project? If I wanted more defined stitches and I just wanted it to be a little bit longer and kind of go through my sewing machine like a little bit easier and quicker, I would use a 3.5 on this machine for like top stitching, right? When the stitching is just decorative on the outside, not where it's a seam that's gonna get some wear and tear in this direction, because I don't want these stitches to pop over time. So it's like all these different things. And I talk about this in the video course for this bundle, and I do it all the time in my classes. I tell you, when you're doing this, and I'll say, like, I'll reference it, this is a construction seam, so that it tells you, okay, we need shorter stitch length because we're holding together the sides of the bag, right? We need these stitches to be stronger than we do need these top stitches. This is decorative. Whereas this line of stitching is also top stitching, but the line that was sewn before it is construction. It's the one that sewed this front panel to the zipper tape. So there's different types of stitching that we're doing, even in the one project, okay? So keep that in mind. So now here's a tip. Willow March says, would a Teflon foot work better? Yeah, it might on your machine. But remember, even if you have a Teflon foot in here and you're using the right thread, maybe you lengthen the stitch length and everything, one problem you might have is the presser foot pressure. Okay, so some machines don't have that tension adjustment up here. This machine doesn't have it. Some of my other machines have a knob right up top. It's not this tension, okay? There's a separate knob for the tension of how much chomp that presser foot is applying to the fabric. So that's something else. You might have everything else going for you, but because there's too much pressure coming, or too much pressure from the presser foot, so many presses, coming down onto the fabric, it might not even feed the fabric through. So you'll have to play around with it and play around with the settings. But again, stitch length is going to be a huge, huge factor when you're working with these specialty fabrics. All right? Okay. Hi, Steph. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Kathleen. All right. Hi, Christina, tuning in from Quebec. Awesome. All right. Oh my gosh, so many Canadian friends on here. I know y'all are probably freezing up there. Hi, Saskia, tuning in from Belgium. Awesome. Okay. So for some of you that are still trying to get the bundle because you're saying that it's in your cart, we're actually sold out. So that's probably just like a lag in the system because so many people had it in their cart trying to check out. So just send us an email. You know, if we have extras, we will definitely be sure to let y'all know. After it sells out, there's also a wait list option that pops up at the bottom where it says out of stock. Underneath it, it will say add yourself to the wait list. So if you still want to get in on one and we're sold out, just go ahead and add yourself to the wait list so that if we do add more, you'll be automatically notified. Okay? So now let's try something else. This was 100% polyester thread that I said. It's about a 40 weight thread if we're thinking in quilter terms of cotton. Here I have one that's slightly thicker. This is the bomb for top stitching. And this would be kind of like a 30 weight, like 27 to 30. So it's going to be a little bit thicker, but I want to show you the difference between a slightly thicker thread, still using same needle, same fabric, and what we end up with, okay? So I'm just going to thread my machine real quick. Let me make sure I use the needle threader because I know last time I threaded it by hand because that's just faster, but then some people thought that it didn't have a needle threader. So there is a needle threader on the machine. I just tend to thread quicker by hand just because I can see from afar, thankfully. All the carrots my mom says I used to eat as a baby. Okay, so here they go. So now I'm going to leave the stitch length at 3.5 and I'm going to stitch right here. I'm just going to stitch right next to these two lines. Since this is a contrasting thread, you should still be able to see it really good. So I will say one thing. This thread, and usually these thicker top stitching threads, if you read on them, they will tell you to use like a 90-14 needle. I'm not using a 90-14 needle because I know I can get away with an 80-12, but that is what I'm using here, just a regular 80-12 universal. So yes, you can use a microtex needle, you could use a leather needle, you can use a denim needle if you have them. If you're someone who really just has like the regular 80-12 universal, you can get away with that in a pinch, like I am. So again, it just comes down to troubleshooting and seeing what you can work with. Yo, this looks amazing. And when I say a pop of color, this is what I mean. Whenever I'm working on projects and I'm like, I think I need another pop of color. Hello. Can y'all see that? How amazing those stitches look? 80-12 needle, it's just a slightly thicker thread. So for construction, I might not use this thread. I mean, you can. Why not, right? It's still polyester. It's going to hold up well. But for top stitching, a dream. I mean, look at that. And so in the bobbin thread, I still just have the black thread. So you can see the bottom line is still that one. So it looks all right. You know, the thread is a little bit thin. But that right there, I love a well-defined stitch. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So just something to think about. If you've ever kind of stashed away different threads that you never thought you'd ever get to use and they're in funky colors, this project would be the bomb for you to try it out with the top stitching right here. Oh, it would help if I focus something. Sorry. So yeah, so top stitching, anything up here with the zipper top stitching, on the side panels top stitching, something like this would be amazing. Okay? All right, let's see. Go ahead and switch to my face because I see I'm getting some questions, so I want to spend some time answering these questions. Let's see. Hi. Okay. Okay, let me go back up here and see. So we talked about the Teflon foot. If you have one, put it on. Joan says that's the only thread she buys. It's amazing. Let's see. Oh, Jan is asking, do you have a video on how to use the automatic thread threader, I guess the needle threader, on the Juki 2010Q? I do, Jan. It's actually in my video review of the Juki 2010Q. There's a section in there where I get like super close-up shot with my lens, and it's like the bomb how to thread the needle video. So definitely look out for it in that video. Just like speed up, you know, kind of drag the little thing until you find it, but it is in there. All right. Jean says, you have good eyes. This 68-year-old lady needs all the threading help she can get. No worries. Most of the machines these days have some type of automatic threader, and usually they take some type of getting used to, right, before you can figure out. And every machine is slightly different. For me, you know, because I did a lot of teaching kids, it was just like, before I have them kids breaking the needle threader on, you know, $500 and $1,000 machines, I would just go by and be like, whoop, 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 and thread them super quick. All right. Kathleen says, Vanessa, sweetie, what was that thread weight? Love the look. I need this for my top stitches. So any 40 weight, 30 weight, or 27 weight thread. Sorry, not 40 weight. 40 weight was the regular one. Hold on. 30 weight, 27. Those two different manufacturers will make different weights of those, but 30 and 27. And you know what? You could even use like a 12 weight thread. I had a little collection of sulky, like some of my favorite 12 weight cotton. 12 weight, okay, so when we're talking about threads, the lower the number, the thicker the thread, right? So if I say 100 weight thread, it's invisible. Okay, there's 80 weight thread. I think Invisifil is 100 or 80 weight. That thread is like, you can't even barely see it. It just melts into the seams. And for hand stitching or needle turn applique, like those thin threads are beautiful for that stuff, right? As you start going lower, lower number, you're getting thicker and thicker. Now a 12 weight cotton is going to be the lowest number, meaning the thickest thread that you can safely use on a domestic sewing machine. And I have a video on YouTube where I share with you, like 5 or 6 tips on working with this 12 weight cotton that I have. And we sell the collection, the little collection of thread in the online shop. And I use that thread all the time for top stitching if you really want like a bold look, okay? Anything like a 27 or a 30 weight thread, whether it's cotton or polyester, because remember, I recommended polyester thread for pouches and bags because that's what I like to use. I really run my bags and everything. I mean, I wear them out because I use them a lot. So I definitely want those seams to hold up, and the synthetic thread tends to do better with that. But if you have a cotton thread that you really love and it's nice and thick and you want to use it for top stitching, remember that the top stitching is not the same as a construction seam. So you can use it for decorative purposes, right? You can pretty much use anything for decorative purposes, the same way that we would use a rayon or a lightweight polyester thread for embroidery. It's not going to be holding anything together with the embroidery stitches. It's just decorative, a design, right? A monogram or whatever design you embroider on something. All right. Let's see. Arlene says my Mara 30 weight gets stuck in my needle and leaves fuzz in my bobbin. So what I would recommend for you is to go up in needle size. At least a 90-14, and if not, if you're still having that trouble where it's like barely going through the needle eye, bump it up to 116 needle. The bigger the eye, the more opening it has so that the thread can flow easily, especially if you're like me and you like to sew at high speeds. It's kind of the same thing on a long arm. I have to go up on the needle size on a long arm because I tend to go so fast. And because you're moving the machine in different directions, right, there's so much friction of that thread against the needle eye that it'll just shred on me, like it has done so many times over the years. All right. Let's see. Jen says, how do you tell the weight is on what the weight is on the spool? I've never noticed it marked on the spool. So the different brands are going to have different information. The thinner one here that I use for most all the garment constructions and for constructing seams of my bags and stuff is the Mara 100 Gutermann thread. And then the top stitching one obviously is going down. It's a Mara 70. The 70 and the 100 does not mean that it's the regular weight. Like when we're talking in terms of thread weight. It's their system of doing it. It has something to do with like the weight of how much per however many meters or something. I don't know. But the 100 I use for construction and the Mara 70 I use for top stitching. Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, Jamie says she's so glad that I mentioned the sulky thread kit. She has it, but she thought it had to be used for hand stitching only. You don't have to, no. And actually in the video that I have on my YouTube channel where I share like 5 tips for working with a 12 weight cotton, I think 5 or 6 tips, something like that. It's a couple years old. I show you what settings to use when you're running it through your sewing machine and how it looks when it's stitched out. So I do hand quilting with it. I also do hand embroidery with the 12 weight cotton. And then I also do top stitching on projects, like on the machine sewing projects with the 12 weight cotton. So it's super versatile. All right. Let's see. Oh, hi, Linda. She says she was so busy sewing circles she forgot to join. She's in my Clammy Quilt Club. I've been seeing all y'all circles in the Facebook group. They look amazing. All right. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Congrats to everybody who got a hold of tonight's Flash Sale Friday bundle. Let me see if there was anything else I had in my little note things. Nope. That was it. The only thing I would say about dealing with the thread and on faux leather and on any of these kind of synthetic fabrics that you're not going to be able, like that's not a woven like a cotton, right? When we're sewing something together, like clothes or quilting patchwork pieces, and we make a mistake, we just take the seam ripper and rip the stitches out. Well, And I don't have one here. Let me see the little scrap piece that I had. On something like this, you're not going to be able to just rip out the stitches. Okay, go ahead and give me this over the shoulder shot for me, just so I can give a close up here. Okay, so here was a disaster. And so I just wanted to see if I could show you that when you do take stitches, and I wish I had another lens on here that would get even closer, but when you do take stitches, okay, and then you have to rip out the actual thread from those stitches, you have holes. It's like perforated all the way across. You can hardly see it there, but I can see it. And if it's like on a top stitch side, you can definitely see holes, okay, of where the stitches were. So on something like this, I would say, go ahead and put them to my face. I would say make sure that you practice on a scrap piece so that you can work out the stitch length and all of that without having to mess up, and then you get mad because there's literal holes in your project. I mean, I'm looking at this right now and there's holes all over it. So unless it was like you're going to top stitch exactly over where you messed up, you're going to see it. And I'm not a fan. So another thing that has to do with is not using pins. If you use pins, you're going to poke holes in this fabric. So for something like this is when your little plastic clips are going to be your best friend. That way you can hold them together. You can even use paper clips, whatever you want to, but you'll be able to clip it together so that you can sew the seams without poking holes in it. So just keep that in mind. And then again, when it comes to the stitch length, if it's too short, yes, it's going to hold everything together tight. But if you make a mistake and you need to take those stitches out, you've basically messed up the fabric. Okay, so those are just some tips to keep in mind when you're working with faux leather and pleather and those kinds of types of fabrics, right? We don't want to use pins for sure. All right, Kat is asking, can you purchase the video course only? So now that we're sold out, we were like, well, we'll wait and see if we sell out, that we'll offer the course by itself. But yes, now that we've sold out, we can go ahead and offer the course by itself. So it'll probably be posted probably by the weekend. And we'll send out an email to let everybody know when the video course is up. Just be mindful that this video course was designed for this specific flash sale. So the length and the type of zippers, I do say in the course though that you can use like nylon zippers. Those will be easily adaptable. But if you're working with a different length of a metal zipper, it's going to be different. Okay, because we're not going to be cutting anything or adding anything. If you're working with a smaller one, then you may be able to add zipper tab ends, but everything is done to the size of the exact sheets that you're getting and the exact zippers that you're getting. So just keep that in mind if you are considering signing up for the course by itself. Okay, all right, well, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm glad y'all tuned in and that so many of you snagged up a flash sale Friday bundle. I'm so happy to be back with another flash sale. We are working on some other ones for the future. So hopefully you will tune in. Catch me here Wednesdays at 5 Eastern time, both on the Crafty Gemini Facebook page and the YouTube channel. And then Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm back here as well. So thanks again for tuning in tonight. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up and share it with your crafty friends. And y'all have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.